Welcome to episode 3 of ADHD Chatter. This week I speak to a remarkable woman called Barbara Rogoski. Barbara, in my opinion, is the world's greatest speaker coach, and she has some incredible advice on how to deal with ADHD both in your professional life and in your personal life. I genuinely found listening to Barbara absolutely life-changing. And her advice on how to deal with imposter syndrome, well, wow, I wish I heard that 10 years ago. I'll let the episode speak for itself. I hope you enjoy it. Here we go. Hey, Barbara.
Hello. Nice to see you, Alex.
Yeah, good to see you too. I've genuinely been looking forward to this recording because I personally think you're the best in the world at what you do.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I appreciate that.
No, I mean, my mornings can be quite slow sometimes. It normally takes me like 2 or 3 coffees to get going, but I woke up and I thought, today's the day I'm interviewing Barbara.
Oh, nice.
Genuinely excited. So thank you so much for coming on.
Happy to be here too.
I'm trying to create some consistency in the questions I ask everyone to sort of create a balanced narrative. In the context of ADHD and with the lived experience that you have, what would you say is your earliest memory of displaying ADHD traits?
I would say in high school. In high school, I didn't like math, didn't like science. And so I was really impatient and wanting to get out of there as soon as I could, and also daydreaming. I remember I sat on the far side and I was always looking out the window, and my math teacher, who was also my basketball coach, she said, "Barbara, come on, stay engaged. And it was really difficult for me to stay focused. So I think that's my first memory of not being able to stay connected and losing interest. And then you start like looking at the cracks in the ceiling, you lose interest that way. So I think that's the first memory I have.
I can relate so much. I think I was probably a bit of a daydreamer as well. How did you find the academic side of school?
Difficult. I tried really hard, but I was really an average student, really average. I studied a lot, but didn't really get the big grades all through high school, all through college. Even in university, I barely graduated University of South Florida with a D- in accounting. The man took pity on me, and I tried really hard, went to his office after hours and tried to learn, and he gave me a D-, and that was enough to let me graduate. So yeah, school was hard. I didn't excel.
So you had extra tuition or extra lessons for a subject that you weren't displaying sort of a natural ability in?
Yes. Well, I knew it was a weakness. And I knew if I didn't do something about it, I wouldn't graduate, because it was really like Chinese for me, Alex. Accounting 1, accounting 2, I just couldn't get it. So I took the step to go see the guy, and he was kind of a little bit crusty old man, but he understood what I needed, and he helped me. And on graduation day, I was wearing my cap and gown, and I walked right up to him and I said, "You're the reason I'm graduating. Thank you so much." And he was like, "Oh, okay. Thank you. But yeah, I realized that, you got to know your strengths. And then with the ADHD on top of it, with the lack of focus and lack of attention and losing interest, it's challenging, but you just have to get to know yourself that way. And luckily at that early time, I realized that's what I exactly needed to do.
It's so relatable what you just said. We're good at some things and we're not good at others. I mean, like anyone really. And if I could look back and sort of shout at my younger self, it was really to don't put extra effort into doing the things that you're clearly not designed to be good at, I suppose. I was never amazing at maths, and I had extra maths lessons after school, and I should have leaned into the creative side, but I suppose I didn't have that self-awareness at that young age to realize that I was maybe trying to put a square peg into a round hole.
Yep, I'm the same, exactly the same. I only realized my creative abilities when I got my own business, when I started my own business, because I had to make brochures and pamphlets and websites, and that's when my creativity came out. I totally agree with you to realize what you're good at and realize what you're not good at and try to balance them out. And another thing that I know now, preparing for this discussion, was self-correct. Try to self-correct. And what I mean by that is I know I'm gonna start this great project, and I have to be sure that I get it done because this is important for my work. So be conscious and self-correct. And that's what I do now, very much so, whenever I can. Sometimes you just can't because of all the all the other things that happen. But that's one thing I've learned so far.
When you say self-correct, do you mean that you're ultra aware of what you're doing and when you're deviating from the sort of direction you're meant to go in?
Yes. For example, I can go from being happy and fine and confident to depressed in a 5-minute period. I can be fine, and then I can be thinking about something that's bothering me, and then I go down, and I say to myself, hold on now, don't let that happen. Don't go down there. Come back to neutral. Come back to where you're okay. And I'm doing that more and more because I'm noticing that I'm falling into depression quickly with certain things that are going on in my life, and it's working. It's working to self-correct, to come back. Nope, not going to think about that. Come back to happy place as much as possible. and it applies to everything. It applies to my work. It applies to my relationships. Self-correct, be self-aware. It's a challenge, but I'm working on it. It's, life is an ongoing learning thing where you learn about yourself as you go. So busy with that, Alex.
That's incredibly powerful. That's such a valuable tool to have built in, the ability to recognize when you're maybe going down a dark path or you're feeling depressed on a particular day, and having the ability to recognize that to start with, and then to pull yourself back. I mean, that's something I would love to do. I think I can do that sometimes. Sometimes the thing that causes me to go the wrong way is quite a powerful force. Like if I get a criticism or a rejection or something happens. Do you have any tips to, like, when an extreme reaction like that and you really get knocked off course in quite a drastic way, which I find happens on a weekly basis.
Yep, me too.
In various situations.
Yep.
Are there any things you could recommend to really push yourself back on course?
I have a few ideas about that, a few things that I use for my own self when I get a criticism or rejection or lose a deal as a speaker coach that I was really hoping to win. I just say to myself, okay, that wasn't my door, and tomorrow's a new day. So some days I can self-correct and come back to neutral and be okay, but some days with those more intense things, just do what you can do today, do whatever you can do, and then tomorrow's a new day. So that's what I do. And I don't know about you, but some days I wake up in the morning and I'm feeling positive and enthusiastic and want to go run out and do a lot of things. And other days I wake up really dark and not feeling happy about anything and in a bad mood or feeling lost. So I don't know if this is related to ADHD, but it happens. Does it happen to you too? When you wake up?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think it is 100% related to ADHD. Okay. Essentially, the advice to take one day at a time. My second guest was a guy called Josh White, and that's a philosophy that he carries through. He really tries to avoid thinking about the bigger picture, I suppose, and really just focus on the day and break things down into like a daily task. And funnily enough, it's the mantra, I suppose, of Alcoholics Anonymous, which is I've been in the past, is take one day at a time, because otherwise you can get overwhelmed quite easily if you think about a week from now or 2 weeks from now, and like you said, when something doesn't go to plan, or you get a rejection or you get a criticism, then tomorrow's another day. We start again. It's so interesting because I think it absolutely has got a lot to do with ADHD. I think we are very sensitive to rejection, or I certainly am. And when it does happen, to really zoom out a little bit and put it into the context of actually this is just a tiny letter on a page of the book of your life, and it's really not going to be relevant or significant in probably 24 hours time.
Right. That's the way to look at it. Yeah.
When was ADHD first mentioned in your life?
Later. It came into my consciousness like mid-forties, because I had such up and down mood swings. I went to a local sort of city offered psychologist, and they said to me one day, well, do you think you could have ADHD? And I wasn't really sure what it was, and this was mid-forties. So I did a test with them, and I checked off every single box, ADHD, ADD. So I've been diagnosed as both, having both of those based on the test results. So I wasn't conscious of it earlier. But of course, looking back now, my entire life was this way. But I do notice as I'm getting older, it's getting worse. And I'm not taking medication. I have a lovely partner who is a teacher, and she has a son who is ADHD, and she knows exactly how to treat me and take care of me and let me be sometimes, or kick me in the butt once in a while. She knows how to manage it with me, and she can see it. She can see it on me when I'm in the depths of it. So luckily, I've received a partner. I'm lucky enough to have this partner who gets my challenges.
I think having a partner that understands the condition, I suppose, is so important, because if they don't, then they can take your behavior as rude, or they can take it as you're ignoring them, or they can take it as you're not interested in them. And these are all things that can cause big conflicts in relationships.
Absolutely.
My partner is very aware of ADHD now. I speak to her about it all the time. So when I get obsessed into a project and I go in on my computer for 5 hours and I completely ignore her, she knows what's going on.
Yeah.
I think ADHD has lots of strengths and weaknesses in relationships specifically. What would you say, and I know I've got a few, but I'd be interested to know what you think first, are the strengths of dating someone or being with someone who has ADHD?
Very conscious of everything going on around. I don't know about you, but when I'm in a theater, I see everything and everybody, what they're wearing, what color they're wearing, and I can often tell you after the show is finished what the people in the front row were wearing. I have a huge consciousness of what's going on around me every moment of the day. I go to a church and I see everybody, what they're doing in like a supersonic way. And my wife is like, "Oh, I didn't notice that," or "Oh, what do you mean? What you noticed what they were wearing?" I'm like, "Yeah, didn't you notice what they were wearing? Didn't you notice what they were doing over there in the corner?" No. so it's massive, Alex. A massive sort of consciousness of what's going on around, and it's quite tiring. But it's just who I am. I thought everybody was like that, but it doesn't seem to be.
I thought everyone was like that as well.
Yeah,
Yeah, and it's
you can relate. You can relate to what I'm saying.
Yeah, 100%. I think
Okay.
it's. I mean, this is actually going to be one of my next topics to talk to you about. Was like our intuition and our heightened sense of awareness. I want to get onto that next. I'm just going back to the relationships quickly, like the positives. I think. I mean, for me, I think it's if you're dating Alex, then one day it's not going to be the same as the next. I think we're incredibly spontaneous, which is fun.
Spontaneous,
Can be really fun.
generous,
Yeah.
kind.
Oh, definitely kind. Yeah. Really, I think empathetic.
Empathetic. Agree with that.
It can have its quite humorous drawbacks, I think, because we can be incredibly spontaneous and then lose interest in the thing that we were spontaneous about.
Absolutely, big time.
Yeah. I think that's such a. Do you want to go out for dinner tonight? And then my partner gets dressed up, puts on the heels, and then I don't want to go out for dinner anymore.
Yeah.
And she's left frustrated.
Had that happen.
It's definitely an interesting. Like you said at the beginning, I think when the partner is aware of the ADHD traits and kind of knows all the sides of you and all the things you can do,
Good and bad.
Yeah, good and bad. I mean, I think there are plenty of good and there are plenty of bad. I think, but the bad ones can be mitigated, and when your partner understands them, then you can hopefully avoid potential conflicts that might be a natural response to
give extra room for the fallout, whatever it is. Because your mood changes. I don't know about you, but for me, my mood every day, as I said, it's a different mood, and I can come in the room in one mood and I can go out the room in another mood, and that's also kind of unpleasant for the partner, because they never know how you're going to be acting or what mood you're going to be in, at least from my own experience. And I try to be more balanced in the middle, but it just doesn't work most of the time. I try really hard to not go up and down, but she knows that that's who I am. She knows that's my personality. So it's not always easy.
I think we can sometimes almost like a drastic mood swing. We could love bomb, be really really close and lovable, and then we could suddenly be quite withdrawn and distant because something has cropped up in our head that has triggered us. Yeah, that's I think the right word. So you think that we or some people with ADHD have like a heightened intuition and an ability to be an amazing judge of character and to spot when someone's maybe not being genuine?
Yes, absolutely. That's a symptom that you see on Google about ADHD, is being able to read people and being able to see who could potentially be a good person or a not so good person. You can read a person just by the intuition. And because have such a fast memory, fast view, like snapshots. I'm doing snapshots all the time. Then of course you do the snapshots of people you meet. Like as a speaker coach, I meet all kinds of people that are interested to learn. Some people that are like there because they have to be to learn something new, and yeah, it's interesting to see the different kinds of people that you come across, and how you can kind of read them with that extra sense that I believe is ADHD related too, in a quick way, quickly read it.
Yeah, super quick. And I think it's that ability to spot a wrong un, or to spot someone who's maybe has an agenda has helped. Has helped me massively in my career. Do you think it's helped you?
Well, it's hurt me with some people, but it's also made me stronger on the other side. So has it helped me? Yes, to be a bit careful and see something before it happens. You know, like, oh, I know what's going to happen here. Watch out, everybody. So I do have that from time to time. But I'm very sensitive, and I'm not good with angry people or aggressive people or conflict or arguments. It's also from my childhood. My parents fought a lot. I'm very sensitive to that kind of negative energy. So would you say you avoid putting yourself in situations where there might be a risk of you being exposed to criticism or aggression or conflict? Not necessarily. I'm a strong person, so I can handle a lot. But of course, criticism and rejection are things that ADHD people do have trouble in internalizing and being okay with, finding peace or finding a balance with. So I don't work in an office. I don't deal with the politics of offices. And luckily I have my own business, and it's a good thing in a way, because then I'm independent and I'm free and I have my own boss. But on the other side, I miss the social interaction a lot of times. But I think it's good for my ADHD that I'm not involved with a lot of people. Because one thing I did want to share with you about relationships is that I sometimes have a tendency to blow it. Like not romantic relationships per se, but like friendships, lose interest in a friendship for no particular reason, and just kind of walk away from a friend. And like business relationships, like, you know, web designers or people that make brochures or coaches, for me, for some reason, I really can't hold on to those kinds of relationships very well. Something always happens, it goes sour or goes south. And I also read that that's a symptom of ADHD, that you can't really handle relationships very well. Like I'm talking about these like business ones, and I'm noticing that, wow, I had like 4 or 5 coaches over the years, and I didn't stick with any of them.
That's so interesting. And it actually makes me feel a lot better hearing you say that, because I'm exactly the same, and it does give me a bit of guilt sometimes, like with professional relationships and personal relationships. If I scroll back through my WhatsApp messages, there's messages from like people who I was really, really good friends with, and the messages say, oh, are we not friends anymore, or have I done something wrong? Or and that kind of it compounds, because then it gives me an anxiety about, oh, now I've hurt their feelings. But my friendships last almost in the same way that some of my business projects can last. I can be really enthusiastic and really into a relationship or a friendship, and then suddenly it becomes too much of an effort to maintain that friendship, and I end up just, like you said, blowing it and just ceasing communication, and I might never see that person again. Someone who I was going for drinks with every weekend or going out for dinner with. And it is quite sad in a way, but I if I'm being genuinely honest, I don't think about that as, it doesn't make me sad. Like I don't look at those lost friendships and feel like I've lost a valuable connection, because my mind's busy thinking about something else. I don't know if you're the same.
Forward. Yeah. I sometimes feel a bit guilty, like, well, gee, why did I do that? Why did I just walk away from this loyal friend who's been with me for years? And I just walk away. I'm not interested anymore. And I do feel bad about that. But then, as you say, you kind of just go on and go forward. So it's an unfortunate thing. It's an unfortunate casualty, right? It's a casualty of having this throughout your personality. So
I struggle to dwell on things, both positive and negatives, which it actually serves me quite well. If I lose a friendship, somebody might be quite sad about that and it really might affect them, whereas I can't dwell on something for too long. So it's kind of like a shield I have from potentially feeling sad about a situation. Like, I can feel sad in the immediate aftermath. I'll be really sad because I almost like hyper focus on the situation, and I'll be like, oh, that friendship's over, or that relationship's over, and I'll be intensely sad about it. But then a week later, I'm over it, and I'm onto the next thing that's my mind's on.
I'm a little ashamed sometimes that I let it go like that. But then after a week or two, I'm just kind of quietly moving on and try not to do it to the next person. But then it happens again.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. And I don't think it's like, I don't think it's something we do intentionally.
No.
It's not. I don't beat myself up over it. I accept that it's part of my brain is constantly looking for the next thing. So it's not a conscious. If we were like a conscious decision, making that decision, all right, I'm that friendship's over now, they don't serve me anymore, then that would make us bad people.
Right.
But it's not a conscious decision. It's just who we are. So I give myself some slack when I zoom out and think of these situations.
Yeah, that's the best way to do it. I imagine. I guess I was thinking, don't be too hard on yourself. That's also another lesson. When these things happen, or when you make a mistake, or when you do something, to blow it, you got to kind of be kind to yourself and say, okay, that wasn't so good, but don't beat yourself up too much. Because I do have that a lot, beat myself up about different things that have worked or haven't worked, or these things. But that's another thing. So self-correcting and not beating myself up to try to bring myself back to that as well. Self-correcting that behavior too. So it's work in progress.
I think having that self-awareness can really help. Have you experienced what I would say is the boom and bust cycle? So you get really into a new project and then, a week later, you're just not interested anymore.
Oh, absolutely, Alex. I do that a lot with my business. I have so many ideas. I have hundreds of ideas. I'm a speaker coach. I'm a TEDx coach. I have hundreds of ideas of products to make, and I want to do this. And I buy the URLs, like your last number one, your first guest said, buy all the URLs. I'm ready.
Yeah.
I tell my wife, she's excited, and I go work on it. And then it gets less interesting. And the next day it's less, and the next day it's less. And after a week, it's just sitting on the pile. Half finished. I have hundreds of projects out. I don't know about you. I have hundreds of projects that are half finished. And I looked in my cabinet. I have a box full of notepads, all different color notepads, all different shapes and sizes, and almost everyone has the first 3 pages notes of something that I started to do, and then I just didn't do it anymore, and I put it back in the box. So all these notebooks are all my ideas that I wanted to do, and then I put them away. And it's so frustrating, because if I could just get a couple of them done, it would be amazing. But it's so difficult.
You're speaking my language. It's like I said this to my last guest and the guest before. It's like I'm looking into a mirror. And I think every person I've spoken to has said exactly the same. So it's so refreshing to hear you say that, because it's easy to, I think, to look at someone like yourself who's had huge success and to think, oh, that they don't get affected by that because they've done, they're one of the best TEDx speakers, trainers out there, so they must have some secret. But to hear that, it just makes it all so much more relatable.
But you don't want to. But in society, in business, in LinkedIn, you don't really want to share these feelings. You don't want to share these moments of not failing, but not succeeding. Because when someone says, "So how are you doing?" you normally say, "I'm doing okay." When you're doing really bad, you say, "I'm doing okay." It's not something you share easily, because people want to just hear the okay things most of the time. So you don't really share it. But I came on this with you, and I'm sharing it now, and just being open, and maybe some of these things can help other people too. What we're doing here, and what you're doing with your podcast to help others to get a practical example of people that are struggling and how we're coping with it. So well done, you.
Oh, thank you, Barbara. That's really kind of you to say. That's my intention with the podcast, is just to bring in people and to create a more balanced narrative around what it's really like to live with ADHD. That's my intention.
Sure.
And hearing you say all this stuff, I think it's doing exactly that, because you can look at someone like yourself and just see the positives and think, oh, she must have the good version of ADHD. But, actually you've got the normal version of ADHD.
Yeah.
You have the good sides, you have the bad sides. And to hear that, I think it really might help, even if one person listens and they think, oh, I'm just going
Tomorrow's
through a bad episode.
Tomorrow's a new day.
Exactly.
That's my mantra. If it doesn't work out today, tomorrow's a new day.
So thank you for being so honest. I think it really genuinely will help.
You're welcome.
Sorry to interrupt the show for 10 seconds. In the future, I am going to be organising some live face-to-face events, and I'm going to be inviting everyone who's subscribed to the YouTube channel. So if you want to be the first to know and you want to come to my future live events, then hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Thanks very much. Let's get back to the show. I'm desperate to talk about your work because it fascinates me.
Oh, thanks. Yeah.
How did it happen? I mean, how did you start becoming a speaking coach?
I worked in the corporate environment, made it to the top there, sort of global account manager with $1 million accounts for a medical publisher. Got transferred to a really nasty team. I don't know if I should say that, but I did. I got transferred to a nasty team, and they were never happy with what I did. So I couldn't succeed. I couldn't please them. I couldn't do what they wanted. So I fell into a really deep burnout, really, really bad. I couldn't count money out of my wallet at the grocery store because I was so confused about how much money to give out. It was that bad. And so I decided at that point not to go back to corporate, to go the other direction. So I became a Reiki master. I'm a Reiki master. And I'm also an ordained interfaith minister.
Okay, wow.
Yeah, I didn't tell you that in our class. No, I didn't tell you that.
No, this is
I'm an
all new.
interfaith minister. It's a 3-year study, become an interfaith minister. And I was a pastor of a church. I was a pastor of a little church in The Hague for 3 years, English-speaking LGBT community. So I went away from the corporate. But then these things didn't really earn much money. So I came back to the idea, what can I do to make money? What am I good at? So I listened to so many boring presentations and sales trainings over the years that I said, I want to do something about that. And so I decided to start my own business called Successful Speaker Now. And I just started going back to the corporate to help them not be boring. So I developed these different skills and tools, and I'm really good with English. And I'm American living in Europe, living in the Netherlands, so I could use my native English in that way. And got involved with the TEDx organization early. So Jim Stolze, who brought TEDx to the Netherlands pretty much, he was the first one to have a TEDx event, and then there were more popping up all over, and Jim knew about them. And Jim said, Barbara needs to coach there because she's really good. Oh, Barbara, you need to go coach over here. So all the TEDx that were popping up, I was lucky enough to be invited to be the speaker coach in the early days, and I coached 10 speakers at a time, and they all went on the stage and they nailed it, and we developed the TED style. And so I've coached more than 150 TED speakers at the moment, and that in itself has polished my skill to be a good storyteller coach and to get right to the point of things. And once I was diagnosed with ADHD, I was already in my business. I'm like, that's why I can really get to the bottom of it quickly. That's why I can kick out the blah, blah, and really get to the impact thing and the engagement thing. Because if you don't connect with me and I get bored with what you're saying, it's not good. So I'm the perfect one to be a speaker coach because you got to get me going straight away and impress me and keep my attention and not bore me with what you're going to say. So in this way, this has been a big advantage. You said, what's the advantages? Having ADHD in this way has been a real advantage, and that's how we met.
Yes, you coached me while I was doing a talk in Barcelona, and you were my speaker coach, and I was genuinely blown away by how talented you were. You took my talk from a boring 10-minute talk into a engaging masterpiece, really, and I genuinely do believe that.
I'm so proud of you. I was watching it, and I was so proud that you took my gestures and you took my stories and the way to do it. And chicken, oh, well, that's another story. Remember we did? Yeah. There was a story where we're talking about my history with problematic drinking, and I once woke up with a chicken next to me, and it was a funny part of that story. But it was your idea to bring that in, and it got a massive laugh on the day. Yeah.
So yeah, it was fantastic. I would never have thought to include that, and it's such an interesting thing you said earlier. It's like if you keep Barbara entertained, who has ADHD, then you're going to have a much better chance of keeping a normal audience entertained.
Absolutely. I'm the one you're speaking to. And so I work a lot with consulting companies and big business and financial companies. And I say, if you cannot speak to me when you're speaking to a general audience, then you're not going to grab them. So I'm the one they're speaking to, as well as being able to get through all the blah blah and the boring. So yeah, I'm lucky. I'm lucky, and I realize it that this is a thing that I can use to make a difference for many people.
You said you had 10 clients simultaneously.
Yep.
Like, I mean, from my speaking to various people, that's kind of a massive ADHD trait. You can jump from one project to the other, and you can give someone all of your attention and then give another person all of your attention. That's clearly been a massive advantage in your job.
Yeah. I can juggle many things and keep track. And in this way, I'm extremely focused. Some mornings I walk in my office. I don't know about you, Alex, but sometimes I walk in my office and I just don't have a clue what I'm supposed to do. I'm totally blank. I'm standing in front of my desk, like, what the hell am I supposed to do today? And it makes me scared because I have so much to do. It's all over the place, but I'm totally like lost for a little while until I kind of get it together and sit down and do my stuff. So there's that far unfocused moment. But then there's other really focused where I could coach 10 speakers in a day and have them all have different talks.
I think a lot of people listening will relate to that bit you said so much about just having a complete blank moment. I have them all the time. You have them. I think a lot of people have them. And going back to that, once you know that that's actually just a part of you, and it will switch over to understanding what you've got to do. It was the same when I started this podcast. I had 1,001 things to do. I had to buy the domains, I had to set up the social accounts, I had to design all the artwork. I had about 50 things to do, and the overwhelm nearly made me quit. It nearly just made me think, I've got too much to do, I can't. But going back to your advice, I said, okay, today let's do one thing. Let's buy the domain. Tomorrow let's contact a graphic designer. The next day let's buy the microphone. You know, I really broke it down into manageable sections.
It's the way to do it. And for me, when I had that moment of overwhelm, like blank, don't know what to do, say just one thing on that moment when you're lost. Okay, sit down and read a business book or respond to an email or something. But that's how I get through it. And if that even doesn't work, then I go outside and get some fresh air and walk my dog to clear my head. Sometimes just clearing your head and getting fresh air also helps to bring it back to a good place. So,
yeah, that's such good advice. Yeah, 100%. I have a dog. I think I showed you my dog on our video call before. Yeah, I've been out walking him. All my good ideas come when I'm dog walking or just generally exercising. It's a really interesting thing because you, like me, we have had many ideas, projects which they've started and then for whatever reason just been shelved. What do you think made you stick at speaking coaching?
Well, I also wrote a book. I have a book called Boring to Brilliant, a reference guide for speakers.
I've read it. It's amazing.
It is. Thank you. It's colorful and short tips, and it's written from an ADHD person for an ADHD kind of audience, for short attention, don't have much time, in a hurry. So I wrote the book that way to make it colorful and short. And that totally worked, Alex. It totally worked because I don't read small print books anymore. It's difficult to read small print books. And so this thing brought out my whole colorfulness as well as making it fun for others to read it. And I was so focused on that, I did it in 6 weeks. And like, how on earth did I do that? Looking back with my ADHD challenges of a box full of notebooks with three pages written, you know? How did I manage that? And when I look at that, I say, because I had the vision and it was clear and it was colorful and short and brought out my creativity, and somehow I could stick with it. And I have the idea for another book. I'm starting my second book, but I'm afraid to start it. Something's blocking me to start it. But getting back to what was your question again? How did I start it? What was the question?
Yeah. Just essentially what made the speaker coaching different to all the other projects that you haven't follow through with?
It's short term. I'm very good at short term agreements, short term things, because the speakers are with me for several weeks or maybe 2 or 3 months. And so I'm really good at short term projects, but I'm not really good at long term commitments. Like I started a membership site, and a membership site is 6 months or a year. And I backed out at the last minute. Sounds familiar, but I backed out of doing it because I just knew that I could not stay committed to this, and I didn't want to take people's money and just do a bad job of it. So being a TED coach, you see speakers 3 times. Being a corporate coach, you have some ongoing things, but it's just all short term. So that's the key, is that it's short term. I go in there, they listen, I use my expertise and experience to make something cool that I'm proud of and they're proud of, and make something special. And so that gets me energetic too, that I can help, like I help with you with the chicken. Like that was a unique thing that we did together. The whole talk was quite amazing. And so that's why, because the short term is the key for me.
It's so important, because what you've said rings true to what I've had other people with ADHD say, and what they've had success in, and tremendous success, like yourself and my other guests, is doing stuff in short bursts and really not overcommitting, and getting that short-term dopamine loop, that cycle of dopamine in short, manageable projects.
Yep.
For me, it was social media. For Josh, previously, it was DJing. For you, it was speaker coaching. A client instructs you. You have a call with them. You have maybe 3 or 4 calls with them, and then they do the talk, and that's job done. Exactly. It's very manageable. You get a big rush of dopamine, probably throughout. You might be a bit nervous the first time you meet them. I don't know. I certainly would be. But once you see the finished project, you get a rush of dopamine, and then that's kind of right. Okay, I am a speaker coach, but for now, this is what I am. This client.
Yeah.
Really try and separate it, and to make it not too overwhelming.
Absolutely. Sometimes it even gets to the point where I'm so engaged with the client that there's no one else in the room. There's no one else except us two. And that's like a lovely moment. It's a lovely moment of connection, heart-to-heart connection, because you're so working together with these ideas. And it's like the whole world just fades out. And that's a nice feeling. I was in an office building with a huge lobby with 3 levels of places to sit where everybody could see you. Huge building, huge glass building. And I was with this gentleman, and we were working together on something, and the whole place just disappeared. And
that sounds
that's
amazing.
Lovely too, as a coach, speaker coach. So that was a lovely moment. That happens from time to time.
That's what you want, isn't it? That's the end goal, to get that relationship, and to create that environment where you both just have that ability to focus on his or her story, and to try and find the bits that are going to pack a punch when they're on stage.
Right. And teach them how to do that, how to deliver it, how to make it that way. And it's also trust. It's a lot of trust in that. They have to trust me that I'm not going to make them look stupid, or going to say something that's not appropriate. But it's a lot about trust, and I love that too, because I'm very trustworthy, and I want the best for you. I want the best for the person I'm working with all the time. Being of service, this interface minister, does come through like this too, sometimes, with being of service to the people that I'm working with. So it's all connected.
I think perhaps finally, we'll see how it goes, but there was one question I wanted to ask all my guests. When you're at quite a high level in your career, and you're coaching speakers who are going to be on big stages, talking to thousands of people, some high profile people, do you ever feel imposter syndrome? Do you ever feel like, oh gosh, this is I'm not qualified to coach this person? Because I only ask because when I'm on stages and doing various bits and bobs, I certainly feel it, and I would love to know some advice on how to reduce that feeling, if you feel it, and B, if you have any tips to manage that feeling.
Well, I to be honest, I do feel imposter syndrome on a regular basis, because my little voice in my head is very active, very strong. My little Barbara, I'm in touch with, inner child, and she sabotages me a lot, and I have to watch that too and self-correct. And when I'm speaking, because I'm also a speaker, when I'm presenting to a group, I get really insecure. Who am I? Who am I to talk to these people? Who am I to share these things? And I did a presentation on International Women's Day at a big consulting company, and the room full of directors and leaders and managers. And I'm like, I don't even work in an office. Who am I to talk to you about being a communication ally? And so I am, of course, because I know about communication. But that did come. But at a certain moment, you have to say to yourself, they've invited me for a reason. I am here for a reason, to share my knowledge and what I think can help you and benefit you from what I've learned, my lessons learned, my view of the world, how I've experienced things. They don't have that. And they brought you in for your expertise and for who you are, because you're the only one that can tell your story the way you do. No one else can tell your story like that. And so that's what I try to remember myself too, when I'm presenting, that I have something special to share, and that they can benefit from. And so I just try to stand a bit taller. And I have a really cool Spotify song list called Empower Me. And I listen to all my favorite upbeat songs. I have one particular that's my favorite. And whenever I'm nervous, like I didn't do it for this interview because I'm not nervous with you, Alex, but sometimes when I have a big meeting, I play this song really loud and I dance around the room, and I actually tell my friends and ladies that I work with to do the same thing, to pick a really power song, make you feel good, get that energy going, and then go in there and nail it. And so that's what I would recommend too. Build your own power list. Build your own list of power inspiring songs that really get you going in a strong way to make you feel really strong. And that does help.
I've got to ask the question. Mine is Eminem. It's always been Eminem.
Okay,
if I'm going to do something, if I'm going to go for a run or do whatever I need to be to hype myself up. What's your songs? What's on your playlist?
My number one song that I listen to whenever I need the courage is Brave by Sarah Bareilles. And it's about communicating and speaking up. And I want to see you be brave. I want to see you be out in the world. Go stand up for yourself. Be brave. And the lyrics are awesome. And I just play it really loud. And that always picks me up when I need it or gets me ready for the thing I have to do. So, but I have a whole Spotify list, and I've got quite a few ladies that like it, people that like it. So it's Empower Me songs playlist.
Amazing. I think, such good advice. And I think that's a nice tone to bring this conversation to a close. I think it's been amazing. Where can people find you? And I'll put the information in the show notes to the episode. If people want to chat to you a bit more, where can people find you? Well,
I have a website called successfulspeakernow.com that talks about the different things that I do. I have a LinkedIn page that I'm very active on. I'm the only Barbara Rogoski on LinkedIn, so it shouldn't be too hard to find me. And if anybody wants to know more about my experience or talk about ADHD issues, I'm available to be in contact and to answer anything I can do there. I wrote this book called Boring to Brilliant, a reference guide for speakers, also ADHD oriented, in the tips for the speakers out there in the world. And so I suppose the best way is LinkedIn, is to be in touch with me, be in contact and connect there to see what's going on. And I'm quite interested to help people, and I'm a good listener, so I'm available if anyone wants to get in touch with me.
Amazing, thank you. I'll put all that information in the show notes. And just quickly going back to your book, I thought it was quite an embarrassing admission I made once, but I've never read a book. I've tried to read loads of books, but I've never been able to. And your book is the only book I've ever read, and that's genuinely the truth. Yeah, you sent it to me, and I went downstairs because I had a genuine passion. Incentive to read it, and I went downstairs, and over about an hour and a half, 2 hours, I read it all.
Wow.
And it really is amazing, and it has got a lot of amazing advice which I took forward onto my talk.
That's a great compliment, Alex. Thank you. Thanks for that.
The only book I've ever read. It's genuinely true.
I've ever read. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I put all that.
I did what I needed to do with that book. That's exactly what I wanted it to be.
Yeah, maybe it was the way it was written, or it had a nice text to picture ratio, and the font was a particular way. I don't know, but it worked. It's amazing. But yeah, thank you, Barbara, so much. It's been I've certainly enjoyed this conversation. I've gained a lot from it. I've learned a lot, and I think others will too. So thank you for your time. Thank you, Barbara.
You're welcome. Thanks, Alex. I enjoyed it too, and let's stay in touch and keep going with what you're doing, because you're making a difference. Absolutely.
I will do. Thanks so much, Barbara.
You're welcome. Okay.